What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We got a really exciting episode today. I'm going to be dissecting the quarterback myth out there that goes, you can define the quarterback and how good he is based on his win-loss record. That is not true. There are a lot of things that go into why certain quarterbacks are unable to have great quarterback win records compared to guys like Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. They have some of the best quarterback win records in the NFL. But you look at guys like Matthew Stafford, who have been thrown into terrible situations, haven't had great teams around them like Patrick Mahomes has, and that's why their win records are a lot lower than theirs. So that is a common myth and misconception that a lot of people have when it comes to trying to define if a quarterback's good or not, judging him based on his win-loss record. I think that's really wrong, and I think it's a big myth that we have to dissect. Justin Fields was really shockingly ranked over Trevor Lawrence on the NFL Top 100 Players list. Now, I don't know what the players were thinking putting Justin Fields over Trevor Lawrence, but I'm going to give my thoughts on this. And then there's trade interest coming from the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers and Chase Young. And is Justin Herbert overrated? He just recently signed the richest extension ever for an NFL quarterback. Did the Chargers overpay? And is he to blame for the Chargers choking their 27-0 lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars in this past year's wild card round? Before we get into it, if you haven't already, make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Also, remember that you can listen to the audio version of this podcast on all podcasting platforms. We're not just available on YouTube. You can find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast. Rate us 5 stars if you enjoyed this episode, and share with your friends, family members, and acquaintances. Now, analysts and a lot of fans out there like to try to judge quarterbacks based on their win-loss record. Oh, well, he's not a great quarterback because he has a below 500 record. You cannot solely base the quarterback on a win-loss record. You want to know why? Because football is a team sport. One player isn't playing every position on the field. There are a lot of factors that go into determining how successful a quarterback is going to be and how many games he's going to be capable of being able to lead a team to. A great quarterback, if he's playing on a bad team with bad coaching, he's not going to have a great win-loss record. When you look at Matthew Stafford, right? What was the narrative about him before he got traded to the LA Rams and won the Super Bowl? He was overrated. You remember the nickname they used to give Matthew Stafford? Matthew Stat Pafford. He put up a lot of great numbers in the fourth quarter, but many people said that he was overrated and he couldn't come through in the big games. Plus, they used to throw the 0-3 playoff record at you. Then he goes to the Los Angeles Rams, and everybody realizes how good Matthew Stafford is, how talented he is, and how the Detroit Lions weren't able to build around him properly. And pretty much, he was able to prove the doubters wrong and lead the Rams to a Super Bowl. And then he becomes a Super Bowl champion, and now you got people trying to make the argument that he's a borderline Hall of Famer. But when it comes to other quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins, though, they look at their win-loss record and they say, oh, they're not that great. Oh, they're overrated. But Kirk Cousins hasn't had the same teams as guys like Patrick Mahomes. Now, there's been certain years when Kirk Cousins has had teams that's been good enough to win a Super Bowl, but he hasn't been able to come through. But you see, win-loss record can't be equally given to every single QB. At the same time, not every quarterback is going to be in the same situation that has success. The most successful quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, guess what they all have in common? Great head coaches. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Drew Brees, Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll. You need a great quarterback if you want to be a successful head coach, and you need a good head coach if you want to be a successful quarterback. Justin Fields just signed a record-breaking contract extension, right? And he's getting considered overrated because of the Chargers choking away a 27-0 lead. You can't put that on Justin Herbert. That's not Justin Herbert's fault. Was Justin Herbert out there playing defense? Was he out there playing cornerback? Was he calling the plays? You cannot put that loss entirely on Justin Herbert. And then when you try to look at these win-loss record scenarios, when you look at some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, they all have great win-loss records. And you want to know something else that they have? A great supporting cast. Jimmy Garoppolo has a higher career winning percentage than Deshaun Watson. Who do you think is the better quarterback, Deshaun Watson or Jimmy Garoppolo? Obviously, it's Deshaun Watson, but based on a lot of people on Twitter who like to throw, this QB doesn't have a great winning percentage out there, and there are arguments for why quarterbacks are better, you're basically telling me based on that thinking that Deshaun Watson isn't better than Jimmy Garoppolo because Jimmy Garoppolo has a better winning percentage. Why does Jimmy Garoppolo have a better winning percentage than Deshaun Watson? Because he's been in a better situation than Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson was on the San Francisco 49ers, do you not know how many championships they could have won? Him and Kyle Shanahan together compared to Jimmy Garoppolo? That's why you cannot always define a quarterback by a win-loss record. I think that trying to make arguments using win-loss records as arguments is a weak selling point to try to prove why another quarterback is better. And not just that, but having these quarterback debates are kind of pointless anyway, because every single quarterback you can make excuses for not being better than the other. When it comes to Joe Burrow being better than Patrick Mahomes, you can say, well, Patrick Mahomes has had a better offensive line than what Joe Burrow has. You can make the argument and say that Joe Burrow has had a better overall team than Josh Allen. You can make the argument and say that Patrick Mahomes is better than Lamar Jackson because he's had better coaching and more weapons than Lamar Jackson. That's why these quarterback debates are kind of pointless, and trying to justify why a quarterback's better or why a quarterback is elite or why a quarterback is good based on his win-loss record is dumb. At the end of the day, if a quarterback is in a bad situation compared to a guy that's in a great situation, of course, the guy in the better situation is going to have a better win-loss record. You can't compare situations. Not everybody has the same weapons. Not everybody has great coaching. You need all those things to be successful as a quarterback. Quarterbacks that often end up becoming busts get drafted to unstable organizations that don't have stability on the coaching staff. The quarterbacks that are the most successful are the quarterbacks that don't have to undergo the most coaching changes. If you want to try to judge a quarterback by a win-loss record, you're going to have to basically say that if you were to put all these quarterbacks on the same situations, on the level playing field, with the same amount of talent to work with, these guys are going to be better just based on how many games they can impact with them taking snaps underneath center. Having a great win-loss record doesn't always define a quarterback. Matthew Stafford had a winning record with the LA Rams the year he won the Super Bowl, 12-5 in the regular season, undefeated throughout the playoffs. He had a losing record of 74-90 with the Detroit Lions in 12 seasons there, and he was 0-3 in the postseason. And everybody tried to label Matthew Stafford an overrated quarterback or a mid quarterback, right? And then he gets traded to the LA Rams They won a Super Bowl with him, and all of a sudden, he's an elite quarterback now. That's why you can't define truly how great a QB is based on a win-loss record. Matthew Stafford got an all-time great head coach in Sean McVay. Name me a single quarterback that has won a Super Bowl that didn't have a great head coach. Great quarterbacks are playing with great head coaches. Great head coaches need good quarterbacks to be successful, but elite head coaches can win with subpar quarterback play. Not every single quarterback is going to have a great situation, but the great ones are going to be able to overcome it. But however, they still aren't going to be able to have a lot of postseason success, and they still most likely aren't going to have a lot of success in the regular season. That's why the teams with the best coaching plus the best quarterbacks normally go the furthest in the playoffs. Look at the couple of teams that we had in the conference championship this past season. Chiefs, Bengals, Eagles, 49ers. What did all four of those teams have in common? They had elite head coaches. Quarterbacks cannot be defined by a win-loss record, man. That is one of the silliest narratives that get pushed out there by the national media, and it's a myth. Not every quarterback is in the same situation to be successful. When you see certain quarterbacks that were in bad situations go to better opportunities and they end up breaking out, you be like, oh, how were they not this good before? Because they were in a bad situation. I got to get me a sip of Gatorade real quick before we move on to the next segment. If you haven't already, make sure that you go ahead, check out the JT Sports Podcast. We're not just available on YouTube. You can find us on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. Also, follow us on Instagram. It used to be called Twitter, but now it's called X. But you can follow us on there at JT Sports __. Hit us a text in the DM if you got a question or something that you would like to be discussed on the potential episode of the podcast. Now, we got some more stuff to get into, man. We're just getting started. Now, the NFL Top 100 Players list came out, and surprisingly, Justin Fields was rated 86 over Trevor Lawrence. And of course, this sparked debate on social media. Who was the better quarterback? Trevor Lawrence coming in at 96, Justin Fields coming in at number 87 or 86. And you know, the NFL loves doing this. They love sparking up controversy around this time. And these players, you know, they play these games every single week, so you would trust their judgment. But some of these players, I think, have a lot of favoritism and a lot of bias, and they don't take these things seriously. Now, I love Justin Fields, but let's just be real. Justin Fields being ranked over Trevor Lawrence is a joke. It really is. Trevor Lawrence right now is pretty much in ascension mode. Not only has he proven to be the savior of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he also has proven that he has the capability of being able to lead Jacksonville to the Super Bowl. Now, when we're looking at Justin Fields, man, this dude is playing for his career right now. His career. Now, for players, you got to understand something. A lot of these players get really fascinated by athleticism and flash. Just keeping in the buck. And I'm not trying to throw shade on Justin Fields, trying to indirectly call him a running back, because I'm not. But I'm just saying, he's a more flashier player than Trevor Lawrence. Justin Fields, he trends on Twitter every single week or on X. And he's normally going viral for having a crazy touchdown run. He's not really going often. Well, he's not really going viral often for his displays of passing. Trevor Lawrence, in the meanwhile, he's in the background, and this dude is carving it up in Duval. Not only is he a really great passer, but he is a really underrated runner. He's a really slim and really elusive runner when he decides to tuck and run. I think that Trevor Lawrence, without a doubt, if you were a general manager right now and you had to pick between these two quarterbacks who you wanted to lead your franchise for the next 10 years, you're taking Trevor Lawrence if you have common sense. Now, these players, they get fascinated by athleticism, and I don't know what logic goes through their heads when they have the opportunity to write down the players who they have on these lists. But I don't know what Justin Fields was doing to some of these players, but I'm guessing that maybe he had some players vote for him that were on the Detroit Lions and a couple of other squads when he was going crazy. I think Trevor Lawrence having such a slow start to last season, maybe the players kind of weren't all that impressed with him as much as they were with Justin Fields when he was going off. And these players, they're in the league, so maybe they know some things that we don't. Maybe they understand certain players' situations. But it's funny how people in the media and casual fans out there, they don't think that nuanced about these kind of things. You feel me? To the casual fan out there, you're going into this season, man. Justin Fields sucks. He's not a great quarterback. He's going to fail. But you're not taking into account that he had a terrible group of wide receivers last year and the worst offensive line in the NFL, and he was learning a new system. But you look at Trevor Lawrence, who had a better head coach and a better situation around him. But people don't like to make those kinds of arguments and make those kinds of, statements for guys like Justin Fields because there's already a narrative about him. There was already a narrative about Justin Fields that coming out of Ohio State, he was going to be another mobile quarterback that was going to struggle as a passer, similar to Vince Young, but way more jacked up and athletic. Meanwhile, Trevor Lawrence, he was the poster child. He was the chosen one. He was the prophet. He was supposed to come in and dominate right away like Andrew Luck, but that was ruined. You want to know why? Because of Urban freaking Meyer. And we don't talk about that. We don't talk about how awful Trevor Lawrence was his rookie season because we give him the benefit of a doubt for his rookie season. But you see at the same time, people don't really take these things into account when it comes to how they look at Justin Fields' situation. Trevor Lawrence was thrown in a bad situation, and we saw how he turned out. Not great. So it's just like a lot of people, when they have certain narratives about these quarterbacks, obviously we know that Trevor Lawrence is better than Justin Fields. But these players, though, they understand the more nuanced ways of how the NFL works. We saw what Trevor Lawrence looked like when he was thrown in the crappy situation with the whole Urban Meyer fiasco. He was not good. And you mean to tell me that Trevor Lawrence all of a sudden thrown into this situation with a Super Bowl winning head coach and gets a couple more weapons around him, he improves? That was all because of him? Or that also wasn't the fact that he had a better situation around him? You look at Justin Fields, he was drafted into dysfunction. He was drafted with a coach on the hot seat. And yet we don't really talk about that or seem to really care that Justin Fields didn't have any talent, because there's a untrue narrative out there that great quarterbacks are able to win with anything, and no the hell they're not. All the good quarterbacks are on talented teams with good head coaches and good talent around them. Meanwhile, you're looking at Justin Fields, he's throwing to the worst receivers in the NFL with a garbage offensive line, and Trevor Lawrence had a way better offense last year. But remember Trevor Lawrence's rookie season, though. His rookie season, he wasn't great, and we seem to forget that. Maybe we need to start comparing quarterbacks when they're at their lows, when they're with awful supporting cast, and see how they do with less comparing to how they do with one who has worse and one who has better when it comes to what they have around them. Latest trade rumor circulating around there is that Chase Young has reportedly garnered interest from the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Chase Young, former second-round pick, according to JPA Football, he posted this on Twitter. He said the Steelers and Ravens are rumored to have trade interest in Commanders pass rusher Chase Young, among others. Per USA Today, Washington declined his fifth-year option. He's entering a prove-it season. Would Chase Young be a good fit for the Baltimore Ravens or the Pittsburgh Steelers? He absolutely would be. The Baltimore Ravens, if they make this trade right now, their pass rush unit is immediately better. Their pass rush is their biggest concern going into this season. Justin Houston was your most productive pass rusher. He's gone. You lose Calais Campbell, and now you're relying on guys such as Odafe Owe and David Ojabo to step up for you, and those guys are unproven. David Ojabo, pretty much last season was a red shirt season for him, and then you look at Odafe Owe, he kind of has been a little bit disappointing. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be a fantastic fit, even though they're already loaded on the defensive line. They just gave Alex Highsmith a really lucrative extension. You got to remember that Larry Ogunjobi, he's listed as a defensive end right now. You can move him to defensive tackle, move around Cam Hayward, and then you can insert a Chase Young in there. And if there's anybody who can get the most out of Chase Young and have him bouncing back and playing back to his potential that got him drafted second overall, it's Mike Tomlin. I know you guys remember the brief interaction that Chase Young and Mike Tomlin had a couple of years ago when Mike Tomlin was like, man, you got to be a really bad team to get a player like you. Now imagine if Mike Tomlin actually has the opportunity to get a player like Chase Young without having to stink to get him. Chase Young seems to really like Mike Tomlin. And if he was to get traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers for, let's say, a second or third round pick, I think it would be a win for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it would be a loss for the Washington Commanders. And when you look at all these trade rumors, when it comes to Chase Young, a big question is that you have to wonder, what are the Commanders going to get in return for him? And then also, how are the Commanders' ownership going to feel about this trade? And there's not really a situation where the Commanders come out on top. They turned down his fifth-year option, so he's going to be a free agent after this season, unless they put the tag on him, right? But even then, he bounces back, and you got to pay him a lot of money. You might not be able to re-sign some of your better players because of how much money he's going to demand. But if Chase Young doesn't bounce back, right, you're basically going to lose him, and he's going to be a bust, and it's going to be a wasted pick. But if you want to trade him still, even before this season, you're not going to get a first-round pick for him. For those of you guys who think that holding and stashing him is a good strategy, no, it's not, because the longer you hold him, the more value he loses. Especially if we see him play this year and he wasn't the player that he was his rookie season, that's really going to turn teams off. You really think that Chase Young is going to demand a first-round pick in any trade? No team is going to give up a first-round selection for Chase Young in their right mind. Not any team that's trying to win. Chase Young would be best suited remaining a Washington Commander for this season. He has way too much potential to just give up on and trade him for a third or second round pick just to let him go off, because a franchise like the Ravens or Steelers will end up getting the most out of a Chase Young. And I don't even think it's worth it, giving up all that in turns for a third or fourth round selection that may not turn into anybody. Now for the Steelers, you get Chase Young and he bounces back, because this is going to be one of those low risk, high reward moves for any team that trades for Chase Young that's a functional franchise like the Steelers or the Ravens, and they get Chase Young bouncing back. This could be potentially a move that elevates them into legitimate Super Bowl contention with the Chiefs and the Bengals. especially a team like the Steelers who really already are loaded on their defensive line. The Baltimore Ravens kind of really need Chase Young a little bit more than what the Steelers do. The Steelers don't really need Chase Young. They can kind of afford for Chase Young not to work out if they trade for him. The Baltimore Ravens on the other end, even though they won't be giving up a lot for Chase Young, you're still kind of hoping and expecting for your coaching staff to be able to fix him up and get him playing at a high elite level. So you guys let me know, what are your thoughts on these Chase Young trade rumors coming around that are saying that the Steelers and Ravens have a little bit of interest? Justin Herbert just got paid. He is now the highest quarterback ever in NFL history. And there are many people on social media that I've been going at it hard with who've been talking hella spicy about Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert just got paid a 5-year deal worth $262.5 million. And instead of congratulating the man, we rather use this as an opportunity to lay out dumb narratives and casual arguments for why he's overrated. Let me tell you something. Justin Herbert is not the full reason why the Chargers blew that 27-0 lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the playoffs. Now, he is part of the problem for why they lost that game, but the majority of the blame falls on Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley is not a good coach. He doesn't have good clock management. You saw how he decided to play Mike Williams late in the season and he got injured. He's just not a good coach. He's one of those coaches that's really caught up in the analytics side of the game, and it cost him. And the LA Chargers are a franchise that is historically known for wasting great quarterbacks. I lie, Phillip Rivers. Was Phillip Rivers overrated? Give it. Phillip Rivers has had some good teams, but there were some seasons where Phillip Rivers had absolutely nothing to work with. And the Chargers didn't really do anything to help him have a better opportunity to have success in the postseason. You look at Justin Herbert, the dude gets to one playoff game and there's already a narrative thrown out about him that he's overrated because he's not a good playoff performer. Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions in the first half. Yeah, he led the Jaguars back to a comeback, but who had the better coaching staff in that game? And if you guys have been listening to this channel or subscribe to this podcast, you will remember me telling you guys that Doug Peterson and the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to be able to pull that game out. They were a more balanced football team. They could run the football and they were more well coached. Brandon Staley was nowhere close to as good as a coach as what Doug Peterson was that night when he led the Jaguars back from 26 down with Trevor Lawrence under center. The LA Chargers have a star in their hand. And if you're trying to label him overrated, I would want to ask you, where is he rated? Is he overrated because people consider him to be a top 10 quarterback? Let me tell you something. Do you not know how many doubters Justin Herbert had when he was coming out of Oregon? I am a Justin Herbert truther through and through, because there were so many people out there who were labeling Justin Herbert to be the next bust. So many people out there. And you can look up how many analysts out there were calling Justin Herbert a bust. There should be a montage of it. And ever since I saw him at Oregon, I knew this dude was the truth. But then you look at what he does his rookie season, 15 minutes before kickoff against the Kansas City Chiefs. His coaching staff comes up to him and says, "Hey, Justin boy, you got to go in there because something happened to Tyrod Taylor." 15 minutes before kickoff. You probably didn't get a lot of first team reps neither all throughout practice. That matters. And then Justin Fields goes out there, a dude who was supposed to have the city year. He was supposed to be a big boomer bust prospect. Goes out there in his first NFL game and lights it up against Kansas City. Once I saw that performance, I knew Justin Herbert was an elite quarterback. I don't think that winning a playoff game makes you an elite quarterback. There are plenty of quarterbacks who have won playoff games who were nowhere close to being elite. I like Joe Flacco, Jimmy Garoppolo. Come on, man. Brock Purdy. Oh, you guys doubt Brock Purdy, but Kyle Shanahan went to the NFC Conference Championship game with him. So when you look at Justin Herbert, if you give him a Kyle Shanahan, you tell me how far that team goes. And tell me they're not a Super Bowl favorite. Kyle Shanahan with a Justin Herbert? You see, there are some situations where great quarterbacks just get drafted into a great situation. Brock Purdy got drafted into a great situation. I love Brock Purdy. But at the same time, if he was drafted into a situation like what Justin Fields is in with the Chicago Bears, would he be the same player? Justin Herbert, if he was drafted by the Miami Dolphins and he had the current weapons that Tua Tagovailoa had right now, how differently do you feel about the Chargers going into this season? So who should we really blame? Justin Herbert or the Los Angeles Chargers? Remind you that they already have wasted a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback in Phillip Rivers. Not saying Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer, but I say Hall of Fame caliber because he had the potential to be a lock for the Hall of Fame. And he was one of the best quarterbacks throughout his time when he played. You look at Justin Herbert, calling this man overrated is kind of disrespectful. Considering the situation that he had to deal with last season, you guys make all these excuses for certain quarterbacks like Tua, Daniel Jones. But you look at Justin Herbert and you think just because this dude has been so dominating from his opening game that he can be able to overcome everything. He can't. This dude carried the Chargers on his back to the playoffs last season. Do you not know how many injuries they had on the offensive line? Seriously, they were down 4 starters at one point. Storm Norton was starting for them at offensive tackle. He was one of the worst offensive tackles in the league. So I'm just saying, we got to stop having this misguided criticism towards some of these quarterbacks. Just because you feel like they're overhyped, just because they're always gassed up by the media. Let me give you guys a news flash. Quarterback is considered to be the most important position in the NFL. So since it's the most important position in the NFL, it's going to get a lot of attention. It's going to get the most attention. And yes, getting criticism when your team loses is part of the quarterback position. And getting a lot of glory when your team succeeds comes with it as well. But it's also a position where you still do need to have a good supporting cast around you. No movie can be great with just one great lead actor. You also need good supporting role characters. And for Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, they all got great coaches. They all are with stable organizations. You look at the LA Chargers, they're dysfunctional. They haven't really done a good job when it comes to signing guys in free agency. And you have a head coach who's caught up in the analytics. Brandon Staley is supposed to be a defensive-minded coach, but once again, like I tell you guys all the time, if you are somebody who's labeled an offensive-minded or a defensive-minded coach, the worst part of your team should not be where you specialize at. And if it is, that is a red flag about you as a head coach. I'm looking at Justin Herbert and him getting this record-setting extension that probably is only going to last a couple of days because Joe Burrow is about to break the bank and succeed that, and he deserves it. But I think instead of hating on Justin Herbert and trying to point misguided criticism at him, we should be pointing 90% of the fingers at the LA Chargers organization. Because let me ask you guys this. If Justin Herbert was drafted by, let's say, Sean McVay versus Matthew Stafford being on the LA Chargers, who do you guys think would be the better team? And also, do you think that the Rams are a better team with Justin Herbert than what you guys are? Do the Rams have a better shot at winning the Super Bowl with Justin Herbert compared to you? What are the Chargers without Justin Herbert? And I already know that you Chargers fans understand the importance and the value of Justin Herbert. This isn't directed at you. This is directed at the Justin Herbert hate club out there. There's too much haterade when it comes to Justin Herbert. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. He's been one of the best ever since he first took his first snap of the NFL. 15 minutes before kickoff against Kansas City, his rookie season. And you guys continue to put this misguided blame on him when the Chargers have been through 2 different head coaches, potentially a third next season. If Brandon Staley gets fired, this is his 3rd offensive coordinator, man. This is his 3rd OC. Do you know that the majority of the times that quarterbacks that end up becoming bust have multiple offensive coordinators? Remember Marcus Mariota? His time throughout Tennessee? Jameis Winston with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 3 different head coaches. The quarterbacks that are the most successful have stability on the coaching staff. Justin Herbert is learning another system again. He's in his 4th season. This is going to be his 3rd new system that he's going to have to learn. Do you not know how much of a hindrance that is to a young QB's development? And the Chargers offense will be really good this season. They're not going to have the same issues that they did when they had the previous offensive coordinator. But Kellen Moore isn't going to solve all of the issues on this team. You want to know why? Because the issues with the LA Chargers lie way further than Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is 0% of the problem for the LA Chargers. The problem with the LA Chargers and why Justin Herbert doesn't have the playoff success that many people feel he should have is due to the fact that Brandon Staley is not a good head coach. You got an organization that has a history of rolling away of their Hall of Fame level quarterbacks, not giving them the proper supporting cast, a la Phillip Rivers. When you look at the best quarterbacks in the game, they all have stability. And Justin Herbert has 0 with the LA Chargers. We got to stop this. We really got to stop this. We got to stop guiding. We got to stop misguiding, everybody that's new to the NFL with these non-true narratives. Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterback talents to ever enter the NFL within the last couple of years. This dude is a robot. What he did last season should be admired. It should be glorified. He carried the LA Chargers on his back. And instead of giving him the proper credit he deserves, you decide that you want to call him overrated? What?
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
What is wrong with some of y'all on Twitter? Do some of y'all think before y'all tweet out some of these crazy things? Yes, he deserves a little bit of the blame for what happened against Jacksonville. That was awful. It really was. But at the end of the day, that really falls on coaching. Because if he had a better head coach, would that have happened with Kyle Shanahan? Would that have happened with Bill Belichick? Would that have happened with a guy that was way much better than Brandon Staley? Sean McVay? I mean, it just kind of looks like people are getting too caught up in the fact that Justin Herbert is so marketable and he's on so many advertisements and you see him on social media so often, and you know the Chargers fan base is so diehard about him because they should be. He's their franchise quarterback that the non-Charger fans out there get irritated. And people have these dumb behind, ways of trying to define how an elite quarterback should be viewed and the accomplishments that he should have. And the fact of the matter is just this. Elite quarterbacks aren't just good by themselves. They don't just win because they're great. They also win because they have an elite head coach. There's not a single great quarterback in the Hall of Fame that's won a Super Bowl that didn't play with an elite head coach with elite talent around them. Nobody. So when you're looking at Justin Herbert, and the next time you think about calling him overrated, you need to ask yourself, what if he was playing with a better head coach? You remember what happened with Matthew Stafford. And Justin Herbert is way talented than Matthew Stafford. We should not even be having to debate if Justin Herbert is an elite quarterback or not. He doesn't have anything to prove when it comes to that. A playoff win should not justify that. You want to know why? Because take Justin Herbert off the LA Chargers and swap him with Kirk Cousins. Who makes their team better in that trade? Kirk Cousins with the Chargers or Justin Herbert with the Minnesota Vikings? I think that the Minnesota Vikings probably win the Super Bowl. He probably becomes arguably the best quarterback in the NFC, up there with Jalen. I think we just kind of forget the fact that he plays against Patrick Mahomes twice a year. It's a tough division. He doesn't have a great organization. But we need to stop blaming Justin Herbert so much. He's not overrated. The Chargers, they're just a bad franchise. Stop putting all this blame on Justin Herbert for the Chargers' meltdown in the playoffs against Jacksonville. Because with a better head coach, that doesn't happen. That's more indicative on Brandon Staley than it is Justin Herbert. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast, make sure that you go ahead, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We go live every day, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Remember that you can catch the audio version of this episode on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast. Leave us with a 5-star review. We are so close to the season, man. Since you guys are still listening in this late, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a secret. I think that this upcoming NFL season is going to be one of the best seasons that we've had in a very long time. There are so many crazy storylines. You got Aaron Rodgers with the Jets. You got Bill Belichick, who possibly could be on his way out if the Patriots don't make it to the playoffs. You got the Miami Dolphins, who got a lot of talent, but is it going to work out? What's going to happen with the Buffalo Bills? The AFC North? Oh my goodness. There are some record predictions out there that have multiple AFC North teams winning 10 plus games or more. It's wild in the AFC, man. NFC could be really interesting. I really think that there's a lot of teams in the NFC that some of you guys are overlooking. Like, some people are really sleeping on the Carolina Panthers, putting their faith in Dennis Allen, even though Frank Wright is a way better coach. And history shows us that the better coaches win weak divisions. Bill O'Brien was able to take advantage of a weak AFC South. You want to know why? Because there was a lot of dysfunction throughout his time as the head coach of the Houston Texans. But as soon as teams like Jacksonville just got a little bit good, he struggled. Houston wasn't that dominant. But I might go live later tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, maybe, but make sure that you have your notifications turned on. I know I upload a lot, but listen, I just love football. You can't get mad at me because I upload a lot. You mad at me because I'm passionate about this and I got a lot of things to say about the game. I thought that's why you subscribe. The reason why I feel people should be subscribed to my channel is because, you know, you're somebody who loves football. No matter if it's college football, NFL football, USFL, XFL, there's a little bit on this channel for everybody to enjoy. And plus, you also want to make sure that you're informed. We cover everything. You know, college football. Watch some of the college football content, because some of the guys I talk about on these college football videos, your team could end up drafting. You want to know if they're good or not, especially if you put money on games. You know, with gambling and everything, you want to make sure that you know who's on your team. You also want to be up to date with the latest news. And plus, I think I'm one of the most accurate content creators on this platform when it comes to my predictions. Like, go look at my record predictions. Go look at my resume. Not trying to brag, but do you guys not remember the hype that was behind, you know, the Denver Broncos winning the Super Bowl last year? I predicted them to have a losing record. I'm just saying. But, alright everybody, this is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I might see you guys later with another episode, but if not, I will see you guys